Hey there, Dr. Luke here. We're going to go through an internal rotation base, PAILs and rails, functional range conditioning class for beginners. At the start, I'm just going to go through technique for some of the exercises, but if you know the technique, just fast forward to the start of our class. We'll see you there. Okay, let's talk about CARs, controlled articular rotations. We want these movements to be slow and controlled, very deliberate and slow and smooth movements. We want it to be within the pain-free range. No sharpness or pinching within these ranges, and we want to irradiate. Body tension, the intensity will change depending on what you're trying to achieve, but generally about 30%. We're really trying to work out what range of motion and workspace that you have and what space you have ownership over. So let's demonstrate CARs. Okay, shoulder CARs, let's breathe in and irradiate. Start off in external rotation where we have the palm facing out like this. Breathe in and irradiate, coming across the body. Keeping the elbow nice and straight. Come up into full flexion as far as you can. Once we feel a roadblock there, then we want to internally rotate. Continue to internally rotate and fight for internal rotation while you're trying to make the biggest circle possible. Keep going, extending back and back to your side. Your palm should be facing out. We want to now extend. Now we find a roadblock there. Now what we want to do is externally rotate. Continue to externally rotate, creating the biggest circle possible. What ownership do you have of that workspace in that pain-free range? Coming back into this position here. So let's go to the side position. Going to now externally rotate. We're going to come across the body. Coming up into flexion, we'll find a roadblock here. Now we want to internally rotate. Continue the internal rotate. Fighting for that internal rotation. Coming back, nice. And to your side, palm facing out. Externally, we want to extend. Now externally rotate once we find that roadblock. Continue to externally rotate. Find the working space that you have, coming down and forward across the body and into this position here. So what we want to do is making sure that as we come up, we're not extending our spine, we're keeping the elbow nice and straight. As we're coming back, we're not rolling the shoulders. And also when we come around here, we're not rotating the spine. So we only want the working joint to be moving. This is very important, so that's how you do a shoulder CARs. Okay, internal rotation base for our PAILs and rails. Grab a block laying on our side. We're trying to get in the best possible, comfortable position on our side. Bringing our arm out in front of us, bringing our elbow at to 90 degrees. And then we bring our palm down towards the ground, bringing our hand over our other arm, and bringing our arm into internal rotation, finding the stretch. If there's any pinching or sharpness, we need to move the angle to find a stretch that's pain-free. Once we find the stretch, hold the stretch, don't move in and out of that stretch. And our PAILs contraction is going to be pushing up into my arm. We're going to be doing this range of motion. Our rails contraction is going to be pushing down into the ground. I do like to use my hand as a little bit of a resistance there for our rails contraction going into internal rotation. So that's the stretch. So internal rotation base for our PAILs and rails. Okay, internal rotation base. If you can't get and lie down onto the ground, use a table or a bench, some yoga blocks, getting your shoulder up onto the blocks and bringing it into internal rotation. This is my active rotation, palm is facing down, and then I'm bringing my shoulder into internal rotation. Trying to find the best line of tension. If there's any pressure or pinching or pain, we bring it into a new position. So you position yourself in the best line of tension. Our PAILs contraction is going to be pushing up into the hand in an isometric contraction. Our rails contraction is going to be pushing into the table or the floor. We can use our hand to resist into that one. So this is our internal rotation base on a bench. After we've done our PAILs and rails, it's really important to stimulate the receptors around the joint doing capsular cars. That allows us to get that spatial awareness and active control. So what we want to do is go into axial rotation. We want to internally rotate and externally rotate. Internally rotate and externally rotate. Really slow and controlled, and at the end ranges, really squeeze quite hard. Bringing our arms up into 90 degrees, we can do these internal and external rotations, stimulate our joint capsule in different positions. So that's our capsular cars. Okay, let's start off with shoulder cars, breathing in and irradiate. Starting off with external rotation, coming up into flexion. The goals of cars is to work out what your working space is, what space you actively own within this range. Slow and controlled. Flex, now we fight for internal rotation. Continue to fight for that internal rotation, creating the biggest circle possible. Extending back, externally rotating, coming forward and down. That's another 2 reps here. Slow and controlled. What space can you find within that pain-free range? Try not to compensate, keeping the elbow nice and straight. Great, and last rep here, 4th rep. Extending up, find that roadblock, internally rotate, searching for that space. Extending back into a neutral position. Coming back, now fighting for external rotation. Keep fighting for external rotation. And back into that neutral position. Other arm, breathe in and irradiate. Start off in external rotation, coming across the body, finding that end range, and then we internally rotate. Keep fighting for internal rotation. Coming back, extending back. Good, extending, externally rotate. Keep fighting for external rotation. Find your working space. What space in this circle do you have ownership of in the pain-free range? Great. Another 2 more, slow and controlled, keeping the elbow nice and straight. Good, fighting for internal rotation. Keep fighting for internal rotation, extending back. And fighting, coming across the body. Good, last rep. Up into flexion, find our roadblock. Go into internal rotation. Keep fighting for internal rotation. Keep fighting. Good, extending back, find our roadblock, externally rotate. Coming around, across the body, and into that neutral position. Up into flexion, find our roadblock. Go into internal rotation. Keep fighting for internal rotation. Keep fighting. Good, extending back, find our roadblock, externally rotate. Coming around, across the body, and into that neutral position. Now let's work on our internal rotation base. Laying on your side for this one, bringing your arm into that 90 degrees. And we're going to start the stretch here. Okay, find that stretch and hold that stretch. Don't back off that stretch, just hold it in that position. And we've got our 2-minute stretch here. This is where we do our breathing exercises. Breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. Our exhalation should be twice as long as our inhalation to stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system to get us into that restful rest and digest state, and so that we can relax effectively into this stretch. So breathe in and out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to count you in about 30 seconds. We're going to be pushing up into my arm for our PAILs contraction. Ten seconds to go. I'm going to count you in. 3, 2, 1, contract 20% of your strength. Build it up to 40%, 60%, now 80%. Best effort now. In free, a safe contraction. 3, 2, 1, relax, go into rails contraction. We're going to opposite way, bringing your hand to create resistance if you wish to. Keep pushing. Best effort here. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Going into our stretch again. Find the line of tension. 45-second stretch here. Find the new stretch. I'm going to count you in 15 seconds. Okay, going to count you in. 3, 2, 1, contract 20% of your strength, 40, 60, 80%. Keep going, best effort. Keep going. 3, 2, 1, and opposite contraction, pushing down into the floor. Keep going. Pushing down. 3, 2, 1, and relax, getting into the new stretch. "45-second stretch here. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax, slowly come out of the stretch. And now what we want to do is our lift offs. We want to give our nervous system experience, that neuromuscular control in that new range. So we're going to bring it up into this position and squeeze down into internal rotation. So let's give it 10 reps here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, really squeezing into that internal rotation. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I want you to hold, keep holding, really squeeze, pushing it into that internal rotation. Really pushing hard. Good. 3, 2, 1, and slowly release. And just getting it up out of that base. Okay, over onto the other side. Get into our stretch. Two-minute stretch here, and let's do our breathing here. Work into that stretch, find the best line of tension. Very good, a minute's gone by. Now, keep working that stretch, breathing. Okay, 15 seconds to go. We're going to do our PAILs contraction, pushing up into my arm. 3, 2, 1, and pushing up into my arm, pushing 20%, 40%, 60%, building up to 80%, best effort. Keep going. And rails contraction, pushing down into the floor, using your hand as a resistance if you need to. Keep going, keep going. Push really hard here. Keep going. 3, 2, 1. Going back to our new stretch. Find the line of tension and 45-second stretch here. And this is where we get into our breathing again. So I'll count you in for another PAILs and rails contraction. 3, 2, 1, pushing up into your arm. Keep going. 40%, 60%, 80%. Best effort, safe contraction. Keep going. 3, 2, 1, and rails contraction, pushing down into the floor. Use your hand as a resistance. Keep going, keep going. Push really hard here. 3, 2, 1, going into your new stretch. Find the line of tension. We should be able to get some more increased range of motion and stretch there. And this is a 45-second stretch again. And after this, we'll do our lift-offs. Great. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just gently get out of this stretch. And now what we want you to do is to come up into that 90 degrees, squeeze down nice and slow and controlled. 1, 2, we've got 10 here. 3, we want to give our nervous system experience in that new range we just opened up. 5, 6, squeezing into that internal rotation. 7, 8, 9, and the last one, we want to hold, keep holding, squeezing in that internal rotation, getting our muscles used to contracting in that range and our nervous system doing that as well. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Fantastic. Coming out of that now. And we now want to stimulate the joint capsule. So what we do is that axial rotation in internal rotation and external rotation. We're stimulating the nervous system here, the receptors around the joint. We want to give your nervous system some experience in that range that we just opened up in the PAILs and rails. 6, 7, 8, 9, and last one, 10. Okay, the shoulder cars, breathing in and irradiate, starting off with external rotation, coming up into flexion. The goals of cars is to work out what your working space is, what space you actively own within this range, slow and controlled. Flex, now we fight for internal rotation, continue to fight for that internal rotation, creating the biggest circle possible, extending back, externally rotating, coming forward and down. That's 2, another 2 reps here. Slow and controlled. What space can you find within that pain-free range? Try not to compensate, keeping the elbow nice and straight. Great, and last rep here, 4th rep, extending up, find that roadblock, internally rotate, searching for that space, extending back into a neutral position. Back, now fighting for external rotation, keep fighting for external rotation, and back into that neutral position. Other arm, breathe in and irradiate. Start off in external rotation, coming across the body, finding that end range, and then we internally rotate. Keep fighting for internal rotation, coming back, extending back. Good, extending, externally rotate. Keep fighting for external rotation. Find your working space. What space in this circle do you have ownership of in the pain-free range? Great. Another 2 more, slow and controlled, keeping the elbow nice and straight. Good, fighting for internal rotation. Keep fighting for internal rotation, extending back. And fighting, coming across the body. Good, last rep. Up into flexion, find our roadblock. Go into internal rotation. Keep fighting for internal rotation. Fighting. Good, extending back, find our roadblock, externally rotate. Coming around, across the body, and into that neutral position. Great job. Remember, consistency is the key. Working on your bases, the different bases to stretch the joint capsule and get the best out of your mobility work. Fantastic.